Welcome to In Heels with Keni Silva. And today's guest had to learn how to grow up without stability, voice, and people who were supposed to stay. After spending 10 years in a foster care system, separated from her siblings, she had to learn how to survive before she can learn how to heal. And now, she took that pain and turned it into purpose. She uses her voice to advocate for foster care youth. And she's designing homes that feel safe and stable. Welcome, Courtney Brooke.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Keni.
No, thank you for coming, because even preparing for this episode brought so much tears to my eyes, because I have 2 children, and imagining them going from place to place, not seeing their parents, separated from their siblings. I started crying just because, especially spending 10 years, not knowing where you're going to end up, it's the biggest child fear. That's you never know what it's going to be. Where is home? Where is mom? Where is siblings? So for me to have you here and bring the awareness to such a big topic that we adults can protect the future and the children and do something with it and stabilize that, because it's not their fault that they ended up in that place. So can you please share your story?
Yeah, I mean, where do I begin? One is just sitting in this seat is so surreal. It's so special. I'm not supposed to be here, textbook, right? I was in over 30 homes before I got adopted. How old were you when the whole process started? Yeah, so background for those of you that don't really know anything about the foster care system, the whole point is to be reunited with the parents. It gives the parents a break to get their life back together. Mm-hmm. And then the kids get reunited. So that whole process started for me when CPS first removed me from my home around 3 years old.
3 years old?
Yeah. So
wow.
From 3 to 10, I was in foster care, removed in and out of my mother's care, and then put back into orphanages. It wasn't until 7 where my mother lost custody of us. The last thing I actually said to my mother was, just please leave us alone so we can live our lives. And that's one of the...
At 7 years old.
At 7 years old.
So clear that you just don't want to go back and forth. You just want a clean start.
I just wanted to live my life. And I remember saying that. It's actually an interesting way of how I am or where I'm at today. I named myself, actually. I'm Courtney Brooke, but I was born into this world, Catherine Marie Duran. At 7 years old, when I said that to my mom, please leave us alone. 3 years later, I was adopted at 10 years old. My adopted mom, my mom, when I say mom in this podcast, I'm going to refer to my adoptive mom. I think mom is a title earned, not necessarily just here, I'm your mom. But when she adopted us, she asked us if we wanted to rename ourselves. And when I say we, she adopted also my 2 siblings. And then my other 2 siblings went to another family. So we got separated.
It was 5 of you.
5 total. Well, there was 6. My brother drowned in a pool. So that was already the first thing, right? That was the first thing where I'm like, she probably shouldn't be having kids, right? But at 10, when I was adopted, she asked us if we wanted to name ourselves. And I said, absolutely. This is a chance to just start over. And adult me says, I got a rebrand at 10 years old. And so for today, who I am today is Courtney Brooke, which is why I write my whole name out on so many things, is because I chose my name. I chose who I am. I chose
your own destiny.
Right. We have a choice. Right?
We do. And I always talk about it, that when people sit and say, well, nothing depends on my outcome, which is not true. We always have a choice. Sometimes it's just too scary of the unknown, or maybe too painful to get through on the other side, but we always had that choice. Yeah. And what you said to me at 7 years old, you were mature enough to realize that you want to say goodbye to your mom and have a new fresh start. Because 7 years old, this is mind blowing. This is, you barely started reading, and but you were an adult.
Yeah, I had to be an adult. There was 5 of us, like I said, and I
Were
was
you the youngest, the oldest?
My sister was the oldest, and then there was me, and then my 3 siblings below. And it's really interesting. I was the provider. I was the defender. I protected. And I see a lot of those patterns come in today, and I've learned to work with the OCD that I have. I've learned to work with this defending Courtney. You know, a lot of people say when there's injustice in the world, there's Courtney, because I speak up, and that can be a double-edged sword sometimes. But for me, I think it's important that the chronological, but I had to like take care, and that was really important for me too, and that was my role. I lost the question of where we were going with that.
So I guess I think it's very normal for everyone to want to be in control, especially for children to be in control finally of your life.
Yeah.
And when your mom adopted you, she adopted you and some of your siblings. How does it work even being forced to care? Like, I don't even know. So they come to your parents and say, you know what, you're not capable of taking care of your children, so we're going to take them, and they put you in an orphanage in the beginning. Or
so CPS comes in because there's a problem. They found us in traffic one time. They found us in a couch buried with no cold. We were in the cold. There was no heat, so we were burrowed in the couch, hiding. They found us, they left us alone for weeks. I used to steal from 7-Eleven and feed my siblings. I had to survive, you know? And so when you say, backtrack to the question, at 7 years old, how did you know what to say to your mom? I think I was done. I was angry. I was tired of being at the experiment of how many times does she need to get her life together? Like, how many times do we have to keep getting removed? And so how it works is CPS comes in, they relieve the family. They see something isn't habitable, or the dynamic. A lot of it, I was sexually abused. I was physically abused. We were left alone. Like all of these things. I have a welt in the back of my head because I was hit so bad. There's so many environments where they're not good. And so that's how many times we got removed. Over 30 times.
Wow.
That's what my file says. So then you get a file. Every time you get removed, CPS has to take notes. My file is pretty thick. I just opened it last fall for the first time. It took me over 1.5 years to read what I had read in my file. I used to think, oh, Courtney was always the happy one, the positive one. I go, nothing happened to me. Like I was invincible. Everything that happened to my siblings happened to me. And I say that pretty proudly. It's kind of an oxymoron to say, like, why are you talking like that? But it's proud. I'm proud. I endured. I'm a badass. I mean,
you are today who you are because you went through all these things. You overcame that built strength in you and resilience. And you are not avoiding storms. You can get through them and be okay. Which is, you know, unfortunately in life, you realize a lot of times that people who achieve a lot, it's not just because they were born to get somewhere, it's because they went through so many storms and nothing knocked them down. And that's what you basically did. But so they take you to a foster care or some family,
or
right?
An orphanage or a group home,
but they cannot accommodate all the kids, right? Because there's not enough space.
So there's 5 of us. And a lot of the times, so my mom had all of us, but then there was 5 different dads. So the dads were in the picture. So my sister would go to her dad's. So then we get separated.
However, if there is a dad who's willing to take that child, the child will go
and
there.
I never met my birth dad. And so for me, my older sister and I were never separated through all the things we went through. And actually, it's kind of ironic. Me and my younger sister reunited after being separated for a while at an orphanage in line getting food. Wow. We recognized each other. And we're like, oh my God.
Did you have a feeling that was your sister? Or you felt like a stranger with familiar face?
You know, when you know, you know. And I do a lot of work to this day in the foster care system. And you just see this bond and this knowingness in these kids that it's so beautiful. Like they're just innocent and they just want love. And it's so cool because when you see that familiarity and all the unfamiliarity, that's the anchor, right? That's the love, and that keeps you going. At least for me, like I was so driven on hope. And to this day, I'm like driven by, you know, this positive outcome. I always have this positive flair because I know it's going to work out for me. Despite all the things that I went through as a young girl, right? And so even like I was telling you coming here, I came to the wrong spot. I got a nail in my tire. And it's like, you just start to learn to react less.
Yes.
But when the great things do happen, give it all the reaction. Yeah. Right? Like give the
100%.
You know, like,
yes.
So you start to pick and choose, you know, like I always get this, Courtney, you're just so happy. And I go, well, when you've had nothing, you have everything.
Yes.
Right? And so it's kind of that
when
mentality.
you have nothing, there's nothing to lose.
Right?
That's freedom.
That's
exactly.
freedom. Pretty powerful. It's really amazing. But yeah, the foster care system is very interesting. And then I was adopted at 10. And that has this whole other learning curve. A lot of people think, oh, when you get adopted, it must have been great.
But how does the whole adoption work?
So
First of all, you interview the parents and do you have a right to say, I don't want to go to them or not?
No, I've had some really bad foster care homes. Like really bad. And there's a lot of foster care youth, like, and that's the system is there. Where is this credibility? And that's really what I want to change and work on and I advocate on. But in my certain situation, I've had good homes and I've had really bad foster care homes. But also for me, my mom, and I say my mom because my mom and dad got a divorce and then my adoptive dad ended up becoming abusive as well. And so it didn't stop. And so my mom and dad picked us out of a picture book, went shopping for us. That's what they did.
So there's no interviews where they can see, do you want to go to this home? It's basically, here's a catalog. Okay, somebody likes you. They put you in the system and that's it. You sold basically to the next in line.
I wouldn't say sold,
but given.
Yeah, it's like they want to place you so badly, especially for me. My mom later in life told me that on my file I wrote unadoptable. They were trying to push us through the system. So when I say I'm a foster care survivor, my next step would have been sex trafficking, homelessness, or drugs and theft, right? That's just the system that you graduate into. And then you go into the homeless system. Everything is so connected. And I mean that. Like they wrote on our file, unadoptable, because we were older. And so my mom actually fought for us. You don't want these girls. You don't want these girls. And my mom fought and showed up every week because they actually didn't want us to get adopted. It's really strange how
even at 10, you're still so young.
Right, but that's the sad part. And to this day, like, it's really beautiful that someone took a chance on us.
Yeah.
You know, I would not be here. Boy, was she tough. Tough adoptive mom. But if she didn't fight for us, who knows, you know? And so
she never met you. She was fighting for somebody she never even met.
Right, she just saw the pictures of us.
Wow, and then, something spoke inside of her. Yeah. That's my kids.
Yeah, those are my girls.
Oh my God, bless her.
And she had a dream actually about us. She told me like later in life. My mom isn't very open. She's very quiet and not super nurturing, but you know, she had a lot of habits to break. You know, she brought us in and, you know, she wanted to give us...
So you and your other two siblings.
So my older sister, me, and then Gwen was the last one that hadn't gotten adopted yet. And so she asked us, do you want us to adopt your sister? I'm like, can we please adopt her? And so that's how my younger sister got adopted. Yeah.
So at least you were reunited with two of your other siblings.
Yeah.
And you had some home with the same mom and a dad.
Yeah, and my younger two siblings, actually my brother, he walked me down the aisle.
Wow.
Right?
That's
and so it was really beautiful. It was a really beautiful moment, and I was so proud because like we try to keep in touch as much as possible, but we weren't ever really like had that consistency growing up, and you know, we just make the most of it. You know, there's no rules for how to have a family. There's no rules on, you know, I've always thought I want to be really close with my brother. I want to be really close with my sister. And I was just remember like, I want like a normal family. I want a normal family. And it's like, when I stopped fighting that, I was like, oh my God, this is my family. There's no such thing as normal. We can make our own rules. Exactly. Let's have fun with it, you know? And so for me, it's not the traditional upbringing, but like I've learned to, later in life, I just started accepting. I used to hide being a foster care kid. People go, oh, I'm so sorry for you. oh my God, you didn't have Christmases and birthdays? Like, I remember years where I didn't have Christmases or birthday. I do a big toy drive every year for the foundation at One Hope United. Only I shut down my whole social media and do toy drives because I was one of those kids that used to look and wait for those toys because we didn't have that, you know, and there was a backpack or new pair of shoes. I mean, all my stuff was carried, like, you know, the trash bag kids, that now it's illegal. They banned it finally, but I was the black trash bag kid, you know? And so for me, it's like, it's beautiful to see how things are evolving and that people are starting to notice. There's still so much that's you don't hear about in the system.
What happens to the whole school? Do you actually go to school? Or they have inside schools or learning? What about the whole education?
Right.
part?
It's very, like, I'm sure as a mother, you think about those things, right? How do I give my daughter this consent? I can't remove her from school. Well, we had those lapses and in school time, and you know, I was never read to as a child. I had reading disorders. Like, my mom literally brought us in at 10 and I didn't know how to read.
Oh.
And so
but when you're in a foster care, do they force you to go to school, or is there a system that they still take the kids on a bus to school, bring them back?
Yeah.
Like, is it like a big home? Like, what is it? Or
so it's not all the same. There's different levels.
Okay.
There's group homes, which is like, think of 20 kids in a big estate, right?
Okay.
Think of like when I kind of explain, like, think of when a dog has a litter, there's like a bunch of puppies and one mom, not a lot of supervision, but there's a roof over their head, their basic needs are getting met, they're off the streets. Then there's a foster care home where a parent isn't there and you have a smaller house, and they go to school and they have kind of a more normal life. And then there's a new model, which is what One Hope United is doing, is it's for the older kids that they have live-in care. They don't have to be adopted, and they have family parents, house parents, full-time care 24/7, and there's 4 kids, and they're from 13 to 18. So they learn love and repair. And if you mess up, you have to learn how to come back to love and talk about things. And so you don't have to wait to get adopted now. And so that's teaching them this beautiful part of relationship that I had to teach myself, is you can mess up and still be loved.
Yes.
Love was taught for me that it's conditional. If it leaves you, that's what love is. Moving homes, constantly being removed from my parents. I was taught that love was conditional. I didn't understand until later in life, like, oh my gosh, every time, like, no wonder it's so easy for people to leave my life. Like, I didn't understand why it was so easy. And I was like, oh, that's what love is. I'm like, no. And so these homes give these kids, the third home I talked about, the Hope House, gives these kids this opportunity to not wait to be adopted, but to experience love right away.
How many kids do they have? Or how many homes they have?
They just announced actually a nationwide launch. So it's pretty incredible. They're in Chicago. They're in all over Florida. They're going into Texas. They're going into along the East Coast. I mean, maybe by the time this podcast comes out, we'll have some in California, you know?
So they don't have anything in California yet?
Not yet. So it's expanding, it's growing. They're doing it differently. You know, to change the system, it takes a lot more. So for them, I would imagine it's not just about building a home. It's about also having all the special rights and paperwork. All the legalities to have those children and be in charge of them. But you know what's super special about this model is they're in normal neighborhoods, so they don't get segregated. I used to wear a uniform, and you used to say, oh, she's a foster care kid.
Really?
Yeah. And like,
wait, what does that mean? Uniform, a special uniform that they give you when you are...
So when you go into an orphanage,
yes,
like Polinsky, that was the one I went to. They take your clothes off and you change into different ones.
Oh.
And so everyone, it's like, wears the same thing.
Got it.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's weird.
So
right?
when you would go to school, everybody knows you are from that.
Yeah, so you would wear those clothes to the public school, and you're like, you can just tell, right? And so, or there's different areas you live in, or there's different ways to stand out. And so we didn't want to stand out. We want to be normal. We want to live in a regular home. And
it's like every child wants. They want to be normal. They want to have love. They want to have love. You know, a place that they come home every night and have their few things, you know, just stability.
Yeah. stability. And, you know, if they mess up, they're still loved, right?
Yes.
Isn't that beautiful? And so going back to your question on, you know, the schooling, it's inconsistent. There's not stability. So a lot of the times we would be going into class after just being left behind for a week, or my sister was burned, or, you know, the abuse we endured. Like, we'd go into school and we wouldn't be able to pay attention because we're just trying to get our heads straight.
To survive.
Right.
And to be, school was probably even the space for you to be safe.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like going home again to whatever is happening there.
Yeah.
There was no, it was not even, you know, it's like, it was just a place to be like, okay, this is escape.
Yeah. So
have you seen your mom ever since? Or have you talked to her?
No, I get that a lot. And a lot of people think, oh, like adopted kids must want to be reunited. You hear a lot about adopted kids wanting to be reunited with their parents.
I don't think, I mean, the people I know that were adopted,
I'm curious.
I don't think it's they want to be reunited. They always have one question: why?
Yeah.
Why that happens? Why did it happen? It's like, and I guess it's for them more, from my standpoint, it's just to look the person in the eye and realize that I was not, you know, like, I still have love and I was meant to be loved.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with me, you not loving me.
Yeah.
It's just whatever you went through, that was your deal.
Yeah.
But it wasn't part of, you know, my journey in the sense of, I wasn't, because I guess a lot of people feel like there was something wrong with them. That's why they didn't get that love.
Yeah.
And
you think about that a lot, like, oh, it's my fault, or what did I do wrong, or how could I have done this better? And if I get one more chance, they're gonna love me. Yes, I've had all those thoughts, and I've worked through those thoughts, and I have those thoughts. It's a constant journey, right? Yeah. And so for me specifically, I speak on my experiences. I don't ever want to meet my mom, but I thank her for bringing me into this world. Yeah. But I also see her as a person. I also see that we all go through struggles. I also see that she was heavily addicted, right? It's so easy to get addicted to things, right? Who am I to judge, right? And so for me, all I can give is compassion and forgiveness to the things I can't control, and stop trying to make sense of it, right? And so I ask those people, like, even going through anything, that they wake up and have this story in their head, is just, how can I seek to understand more, right? How can I stay more open to life regardless of what happened to me? How can I keep loving regardless?
Did you forgive her?
Yeah, I did. Have you heard of the Hoffman process? The Hoffman Institute?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, Oprah Winfrey did a big piece on it, and then it blew up, but it's super powerful. And, you know, they opened my CPS file with me, actually. And this is like, they're licensed therapists and psychologists, and like, you work, like, they take your phone and you work through patterns and belief systems and childhood things. It's really powerful if you haven't heard of it, or even just to like know what it's about. But they have a very beautiful curriculum, and it's 7 days long. And they opened my file with me and they said, Courtney, we have to tell you. And I was working with the longest standing therapist in the Hoffman process, like about over 30 plus years he's been with Hoffman. He goes, I have to tell you, this is the most intense story I've ever heard in my life. Oh. And I go, at first I felt bad for myself, and I grieved after I left. Like, I had to relive my childhood after reading and reprocess it, because
I think in the moment you probably blacked out. It's like that badness. The moment you had your parents, you're like, you know what? I just want to erase it from my mind. Yeah. And that's what I think happens to a lot of us when something so traumatic happens. We just like erase it, but then it haunts us down, and we do have to relieve and grieve and just process it to be free. Yeah. And it really allowed me to, I was really like proud, like, oh yeah, like that's so cool. Like, worst story ever. Yes, maybe, you know. And then I started processing, like, wait, you have been through a lot, Courtney. Wait, you don't need to have a smile on your face right now. Wait, you don't need to be perfect. You know, at a young age, I was taught to be very hypervigilant on all my surroundings. Think of it like when you go to the grocery store. You know, you want to be picked.
right? You got the best marketing package, you got to put your smile on, you want to be picked. So you have to learn at a young age, how do I get ahead of it? And so that's where my passion for behavioral studies started coming in, even at a young age. And to this day, I love seeking to understand, why am I OCD? Or how can I work with my ADHD? Or how can I learn to love more? Why do I get so defensive? And I learn about myself. I'm like a case study. But at a young age, I had to be hypervigilant, not only to protect from the surroundings. I mean, there was drugs in and out, like sex, and like it was, think of it, it was in our house. And so that's been brought into my adulthood, you know? And so it's been a journey. It's been a journey, but I'm learning to work with it and make peace with it rather than hold all this energy and be angry. It's like, how do I make peace with it and just breathe through my body and learn to love that part of me, because I can't erase it. Yeah. And it's taken me a while to accept that. You know, again, I used to be so embarrassed being a foster care kid. Oh, then she's not good enough. Or, oh, poor thing. I used to constantly be told, are you sure you want to do that? You know, Courtney, I don't know if you can do that. That might, like, I wanted to take honors classes and AP classes in high school. And Mom goes, you're not able to do that. And I go, says who? And so to this day, I say that all the time, says who?
Exactly. Just because of your past, that's not your identity. And only you know who you are and who you want to be. And you can be anybody you want. I'm such a big believer that, you know, if you have that courage to actually fulfill your dreams and be who you were meant to be, you can do that. Yeah. It's only in your hands, nobody else. Even no matter where we were born, and listen, like, your story is like mind-blowing. Like, I was crying, you know, like prepping for this. I was like, oh my God, like but at the end of the day, it also shows your resilience, that you overcame all these things and you still have love. You forgave your mom. You built something so amazing and continue doing it. And you are true, you know, proof that it's all in your mind and how you look at things. You didn't become bitter and angry at life. You just said, you know what? I want to have a beautiful life. Yeah. I deserve this and I can build it myself. Yeah.
And isn't that responsibility, when we start taking responsibility of our lives, that's joy. Exactly. That's the definition of joy, is how do I take responsibility for this? Now, I'm not saying, oh yeah, you've been raped or, you know, DUI, but it's like, when we start to take responsibility, we start to not reject it, but we accept it, and the energy shifts in our body, whether you have like, and it translates, right? When you make peace, you're breathing, you're healthier. If you're tense and upset and calcified, so to speak, you're tight, you're probably creating stomach girl problems, right? And so I ask, like, when we heal the trauma, we also heal a lot of things in our body with health and how we live, and probably our perspective. And it's taken me a long time. And actually what really just catapulted this into a portal for me was my divorce. You know, I carried a lot of things with me that I didn't know I was carrying because I don't necessarily remember the memories. Yes. And then I opened my file post-divorce and I'm like, wow. You know, my social worker, it's called a CASA, Court Appointed Associate Advocate. And she said, Courtney, I think it's time you read your file. I think it'll give you a lot of insight on.
So this is now already so many years later.
I got divorced last year.
No, but I'm saying you still keeping in touch with the social worker that was assigned to you when you were.
She married my ex and I.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's so beautiful.
Yeah. That was the first wedding decision. I was like, I really wanted to marry us.
So she played a big role in your life.
Oh, yeah. And I would love to share a story that to this day, like, so the point of Court Appointed Associate Advocate is they get all these files. And
it's a government worker.
Yeah. And so they're assigned kids, because you read these files and you don't actually really get to know what's going on. And I'll explain why. So she was assigned to us, and she took me out for ice cream one day just to get to know us. And she's like, so how's it going in the house? I'm like, you know, it's really weird. I'm just like la-di-da, probably like 6 or 7. And I'm like, you know, it's really weird. She's in the bathtub with her suitcase. And I get this big, beautiful bed, but I want her to sleep in my bed, but they won't let her. Comes to find out, that's abuse. So it's, you build these beautiful relationships, but you also learn what goes on because kids, you know, don't have filters. They're just, when you make them feel comfortable and you get to know them and play with them, or it's not like she was bribing us with ice cream. It was just that's how you get to the level with kids, is you create the safety, whether it's playing with toys on the floor with them or sitting at their level, right? And so
because otherwise they can be scared to tell the truth because the parents will punish them later for saying things.
Or imagine in our case, we're in so many homes and every time we learn to share something, we're removed. Every time we're learning to share, then we learn not to share because we don't know what to do, right? And so we're so many people are around us talking with us, or we're being removed and we don't know why, or where are we going? And, you know, it's a lot for a young child. Let alone any child, regardless of being in foster care or the trauma. It's just, a child is so innocent, right? And so it's really quite beautiful how she created that relationship with us, and it saved us, you know? So I guess that's why it's great to not have a filter in some circumstances.
Wow. What would you change about the whole foster care system? What do you think the biggest problem is there?
I'm a big person on mental health. I think personally what I'm seeing with my work in the field, and, you know, when I speak on this, is the mental health side of things is really lacking. Is whether you have a beautiful family or not, I personally feel that when we have that mental health, we have the tools to survive anything. And really what I mean by that is our belief systems, our confidence, our, you know, not this poor me, but you have what it takes to get through. Whether you can't pay your rent, or you have $2 in your account and you have an empty tank of gas, or you're trying to get into college, right? It's how do we problem solve? And really personally for me is the mental health side of things is how are we enabling these kids to be successful adults, right? How are we taking this trauma or these different scenarios and guiding them through it so that at 18 or even now, I'm 35 and I'm still learning how to be working through things, right? There is a constant journey, but for me personally is empowering these kids that regardless of where they came from, they're going to be okay. And to tap into that self-belief, right? And that's an all woo-woo, right? It's like, oh, Courtney, that's in a perfect world. Well, coming from me, no, I absolutely needed that. No one was there to tell me I was going to be okay. No one was gave me the tools that I self-taught myself how to work through things and how to understand my anxious attachment, or, you know, how do I take my problems, so to speak, and work with them, right? And so I think one of the things mainly is having a mental health piece in the foster care system. I mean, it's state ran. So if you think about a state ran program, there's not a lot of funding in the things you don't see, AKA the mind, the feelings, the emotions. These kids have big emotions, huge emotions. I didn't know how to cry until a year ago. You know, I was taught to not cry. I didn't want to be a problem. I didn't want to be sent back, right? And so allowing these kids to learn relationships and repair, and that's so safe. And I think that is one of the main things I see across the board, is this mental health piece.
What happens to children once they turn 18 and nobody adopted them? They just put them on the street, or there is something like a program, a job they assign them to so they can have life?
Yeah, so it's constantly changing, actually. In some states, there's 21-year-olds that the system is extended to 21. And then there's still some states that are 18, unfortunately. And when 18 hits, they're out, right? There's programs that work with kids, but essentially they're out. I don't know, they go into homeless, or they relapse, or they go find their birth parents, and they struggle again, and they struggle again. And that's why I call it the foster care system, because that's the projected for most kids. Is, I think the latest statistic that I read is there's 400,000 foster care kids and only 200,000 homes.
Wow. So there's not even enough housing for all these children. And that's why they move them so much like, you know, because
move them,
there's not stability. Even like I would imagine, okay, they took the kids out, but they give them, let's say, 6 months period at least to adjust, to live, to find a home, instead of them moving, going back and forth and all this.
Constant change, constant like in and out. And some of them, it's like they're just in these homes to be pushed out. They're on the conveyor belt out. You know,
they just want them to have a space for a new child. So they will reach out to the closest relatives to see if somebody wants the child. Is that how it works?
No, not necessarily. Like, again, it's to be reunited with the family. Oftentimes they will reach out to a aunt or a grandma or anyone bloodline. And if that's not the case, and in our case, they would take us, Nancy is her name, my CASA worker. She would take us to pet shelters, McDonald's, Target. There was one day where we didn't have a placement and we were out till almost 9 p.m. She was like, I don't know where to take you.
Wow.
So but
they do take you out of your home. They just don't, if there is no space in those shelters, you're basically on the street. And they think it's safer for you guys to be on the street versus in your home.
There's no home.
Okay, yes.
Right? There's no home. Like, there's no, these kids turn 18 and it's really sad because then I think about my file and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was me. Like, they wrote unadoptable. Like, that could have been me. And so I made a vow to myself, like, you have a choice in life. And I think of life as a Y. Like, think of the capital letter Y, and the leg of the base of the Y is your current path. But it constantly is Ying out. Do I choose this way or this way? Do I choose this way or this way? And a big firm is when I go, this way is left. That's my birth mom. And ironically, her name is Faith. I used to run from the have faith. I'm like, like, and then I started embracing, like, yes, have faith, like, go the other way, right? Have faith in the direction, right? Because I don't want to be like Faith, my birth mom. And so I constantly was choosing and still choosing. And, you know, I have an addictive personality. I know how to work with myself, but I get addicted to the fitness and I love rom-coms. And, you know, I really make sure that what I put into my brain is intentional. Yeah. Because I know how slippery it can be because my older sister went back. So my older sister repeated the same path as my birth mom. She has her kids in the foster care system now. Wow. And so not only does the journey of foster care continue with me, but it's knowing that I have nieces and nephews in the system. But
did you ever thought, you know, taking them under your wing, or is
I try, but I can't save everyone, you know.
Yeah, no, I understand. This, you know,
and anyone going through that kind of like a sibling or a family member or even like a coworker is like, or finding yourself constantly saving them is.
Yeah, that's
we're going to exhaust ourselves.
Fix, you know, everybody. And
as much as I want to, I love her, but I had to set a boundary. Like, if you go back to Faith, we won't talk. And so that happened the year I went to college. I was like, you know, I'm going to take a chance on myself. The year I went to college was the last year I saw her. I haven't seen her since. So that was over 11 years ago, 13 years ago.
And she already had children at a young age.
The year I left, she had a kid. And I found out that she was giving birth to her kid by herself in the hospital room. No one was there. I were never separated from ever until the year I left for college.
And did you see her when you were guys together that she was suffering more from everything that she went through?
Yeah, and so a lot of older, Holly was 11 years old, not 11, Holly was 11 years old when she got adopted and I was 10. But if you think about the impact of, she was 11 years in and out of my mom's care. She already had that bond. Mm-hmm. I had that bond too, but I was angry with her. So I wanted nothing to do with her. So I was a rebellious. So meaning like I wanted to do everything the opposite. It was a little more fragile. And so easily manipulated. And my birth mom was a queen of manipulation. That's what they wrote in my file. She was a manipulator. And I never saw her again. And that I live with it, but I've forgiven there's nothing that I did wrong, but the constant journey of keep forgiving yourself. Like there's not an easy choice, right? To help them or, you know, but then I'm not helping myself because my hands are tied, you know? And so then I'm exposed, right? So if you think of that, it's like, how do I take care of myself right now? And I had to put a boundary up.
Well, What about your two other siblings?
So they went to another family. Yeah.
And they went together, or they went separate?
Yeah, they went together.
And when you guys were in separate families, did you ask your parents to go see them, or it was kind of like
they tried to keep us together? Actually, they tried to like make play dates, and
oh my god,
it was really
so beautiful.
That's not common. That's not common, but we I'd say, I like to call it, we got lucky. You know, they got adopted into a good family. The youngest repeated another round of things, and so it's 3 out of the 5. We're doing pretty good. You know, but it's, I don't really talk to my youngest. She was 4 when she got adopted. She was the youngest, but she's repeating her own, right? And so there's no age where you miss the threshold of trouble. You know?
I guess it's, as you said, you did so much work, internal work, to overcome that, to forgive, to give yourself another chance. And if you don't do that work, it's really hard, because I would imagine that everything that happened to you guys just constantly occupies your mind, and replaying those moments and being in constant fear. And even if you are in a stable home, you still feel like, will this last? Yeah,
and that's actually like very true. When my mom adopted us, she said I had my suitcase packed for 2 years because I didn't believe her that I was adopted.
Wow.
Yeah, for 2 years.
And it's just, even the body memory, you know, a lot of times they say that your mind, you know, you can clear out, but your body remembers and stores that, all those emotions, everything, you know, that unprocessed, and it takes time for it to overcome, to get used to, okay, I'm safe right now. I'm not going anywhere. And it takes time, especially when a child was born and didn't have that stability to begin with. So you don't even know how it feels to be stable. Is this how, so you always on that roller coaster ever since you were born. You don't even know what a steady land means. It's like always like it's seasick, you know, when you're on your ship, and when you get off the ship, you feel, this is how you were always. And then finally, when it was probably stable, like, wow, this is how it feels. But it doesn't feel normal to you because you never had that.
Right. And so my normal is instability. My normal is conditional love. My normal is being hypervigilant. And so I started taking data points on myself, right? Because I've been on this journey of like, who am I without the trauma? Who am I without the past? Like, if I actually just like do this, what does that mean? And so like my file actually reassured a lot of the things that I do, the patterns that I do today, but constantly revisiting and constantly having that journey and the conversation with myself on how to heal. The constant conversation of not judging myself, but Courtney, let's talk about what makes you so defensive. Courtney, why are you so afraid of love? Courtney, why are you proving yourself? Why are you over talking on a first date? Like, dating like opens up so many things, you know? And I'm like, it's really fun versus like judging. I just say like, start to just explore yourself, right? We're so hard on ourselves, especially as women. Right? We're so critical on the way we look or the speak, and it's beautiful, but it's also like, rather than being critical, it's like, I just want to get better at this, right? I know I'm defensive, and I now have something to work on. Right? It's how do you work with yourself? It's a constant journey. I mean, the trauma visits in waves, I say it. Some days it's easy, or maybe there's an experience or an event that I'm going through.
Or flashback, or, you know, just...
And rather than me pushing it away, and I encourage those that when we do have those moments, is write it down and just see what, like, write it down and just hold on to it for a second.
So what helps
like,
you?
Look at it.
Journaling,
I constantly, you know, it's funny, people are anti-chat GBT, but it's really beautiful to just drop in a comment of, hey, I'm like feeling this way, and I'm curious what a psychological response would be. And then I just start to think, okay, so this is how, and then what I do is, again, it's just keeping the conversation. Okay, then I'm going to start I read a lot. That's what I do. I love to read. And so I'll get a book on it. Or if a friend's like, Courtney, you're so defensive lately. I'm like, oh my gosh, no, let me like, and then if I get that data point 5 times, like, obviously it's not the easiest feedback to hear, but I used to hate feedback. I used to like run from it, but I'm like, that's where you grow. So that's
exactly
right. And so for me, I was like, okay, obviously there's some truth into what they're saying. Let me learn on it. And defensive, then I go back, I'm like, oh, I had to defend as a young girl. And that's how I survived childhood, but it's not serving me anymore. All right, let's work on it. Boy, is it hard.
Right. Working on yourself is the first thing you have to do. I realize you have to admit there's something wrong with you. Not wrong, but there is something like, hey, and it's okay. I always tell myself, like, listen, we are perfectly imperfect.
Yeah.
We just have things that sometimes we're good at something and sometimes we're not. And also, how we react. And that's why I always tell my team, I'm like, hey, I love criticism, constructive criticism. Not because I want to perfect myself. Yeah. If I did something wrong, I want to know it. Yeah. Not because of anything, because I want to get better. I want to learn something that I can do better, how I can be a better host, a better listener, a better mom. Like it's just, to me, it's not offensive in a way that, somebody's saying no, because we all were born with nothing, really, with no knowledge. I tell my children, like, if they feel like they're not smart enough or, I said, listen, we all were born with zero. And you start at the same level, but some kids have more advantage versus like my kids, because they're in a place where they can learn. Yep. And there's people like you. And that's why I tell my kids, I'm like, you have you cannot say that you didn't get a fresh start or a clean start because you do. Yeah. So if you're not taking that chance to be somewhere here, that's on you. Just because you're being lazy. Yeah. That has nothing to do. You don't have, a mental problem. You don't have, that you cannot learn. So you're not being accountable for you not doing your work. Right. And I can understand if you have an excuse like, some people are born different, or some people are born in homes like you. But still, you didn't give yourself excuse.
No, I don't want, and I encourage like anyone who because it's a sensitive subject, right? Is how do I talk about adoption to a foster care kid? It's like this taboo, like, oh, we just don't want to, my advice to you is everyone has things. So even if you're listening to me and you're like, well, I was adopted, I also don't want you to feel sorry for yourself, because we all have things going on in life. I'm not more important than you because I have more background of traumatic instances. No, I'm an equal. You have your problems. I have my problems. Trauma doesn't just happen in childhood. Trauma happens in adulthood. Trauma happens as soon as you leave the store, right? Yes. And my point is like, society deems me as, oh, poor thing, but I'm like, thank you, right? And so looking at everyone as an equal versus judging them based on their past, because for me, I don't feel sorry for myself. I love that I didn't have Christmases, because now Christmas is my favorite holiday, And so I just spin it in a way that's just like, why are you feeling sorry for me? Not that I'm saying you are, but in general, it's like, don't feel sorry for me. I'm very grateful for the past that I have, because I've made peace with it. And that's where my power lies. That's where my purpose has been hiding this whole time. Is when I was ashamed, I realized, oh my gosh, I'm not using my voice. And then when I started to share, I was like, that's where my purpose started to come out. And that's where I started doing the work. And then I started designing homes. And it was like, wait, the more I use my past, I can have that purpose into my future. And it was limiting me. I like that belief system of, oh, people are going to think differently of me because of the comments that I used to hear. I'm like, wait a minute, let's turn this around. Right?
That's the most beautiful thing. Yeah. And unfortunately, on this note, we're going to have to end, because the time just goes so fast. Yeah. But I want you to remember that every pain can be turned into purpose, just like Courtney did. Thank you so much, Courtney, for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.